politicians and legislators to deal with, and we thank Representative Moore for his courage in speaking out.
Katherine Johnson, the Georgia resident, was murdered as a result of an no-knock raid. This raid forced law enforcement to put evidence gathering before human life. She was a 92-year-old grandmother who lived by herself. No evidence was found at that raid. Earlier this year, the Georgia toddler was hit by a grenade as a result of a no-knock raid. This raid again forced law enforcement to put evidence gathering above human life. That toddler would be scarred for life. His family is crippled by almost $1 million in hospital bills. No evidence was found during this raid. David Hooks, a Georgia resident, was recently murdered as a result of a no-knock raid. This raid again forced law enforcement to put evidence gathering above human life. He was a 59-year-old grandfather, multiple business owner, and a model citizen. He was a pillar of the community, but no evidence was found at this raid. My name is Sam Moore. I'm a Georgia State House representative. Earlier this year, I introduced a bill that would end no-knock raids in the state of Georgia. It was ignored by the Georgia State House and ridiculed by those who put evidence gathering above human life. But before I go into that, let me explain what a no-knock raid is. A no-knock raid is when a government-sanctioned agent violently breaks into your home to simply search for some inanimate object. This violent break-in occurs without warning for you or your family. It is oftentimes done at night when you and your family are asleep. This violent break-in often starts with breaking a window or a door in your own family's home. Then a grenade is tossed into your home. This grenade is designed to stun and blind you and your family members, American citizens. It's also hot enough to start a fire in your home with you and your family in it. This grenade is followed by multiple officers in military gear entering your home, sometimes from multiple entry points. These officers will rightly be scared for their own lives. And because of that, they'll have their guns drawn and be pointing those guns at you and your family. If you have a dog that barks at intruders, then that dog will likely be shot, possibly right in front of you and your family. You and your family will be physically corralled at gunpoint into some common room in whatever state of dress you happen to be in at the time. You'll be forced to sit in handcuffs as officers in military clothing and gear point guns at you, shouting orders at you. While your family cries on the floor of your broken into home, those officers can then finally look for those inanimate objects that they were looking for. After their search is complete, it's up to you to clean up the mess, repair the door, repair the broken glass, and air out the grenade smoke residue. You're also left to deal with an immediate and permanent distrust of law enforcement. You're left to deal with immediate and permanent distrust of government. You're left to deal with constant nightmares and the constant nightmares of your family. You're left to deal with the fear that it could happen again. You're left to deal with the humility of having your home invaded by a group that will claim immunity if you attempt to seek legal justice. That's the best case scenario for a no-knock raid. That's how they're supposed to work. This is how a no-knock raid works if the procedure's followed and if everybody does what they're expected. When it don't work as planned, the situation can quickly result in the death of you, your family, or a law enforcement officer. This is the reason that we have the Fourth Amendment. It allows for reasonable searches and seizures under a proper warrant. Now, let me explain what a search warrant that follows the Fourth Amendment does. It's the same situation, except that officers approach the house with a warrant, as in both cases. They knock on the front door. They announce themselves as law enforcement. They state their purpose for being there. No physical damage to your house occurs. Your family's given a reasonable amount of time to answer the door. You're able to collect your thoughts. You're allowed to make rational decisions. You open the door, you permit the officers to search according to the warrant, and that's it. They still get to look for their inanimate objects, except now your family's not shattered, threatened, and your property's not destroyed. The difference between a Fourth Amendment raid and a no-knock raid is important. One, again, forces law enforcement to put evidence gathering above human life. The other puts human life above evidence gathering. What evidence is worth a human life? Back to the State House and my bill to end no-knock raids. My bill 1046 and similar bills to end no-knock raids have been ignored because the politicians at the Gold Dome have put evidence gathering above human life. Blood is on their hands. We must get them to see this. We must get them to act on it. We must not stand for no-knock raids. For as long as we stand for no-knock raids, innocent people will die. Innocent lives will be shattered. Innocent law enforcement officials will be put into more situations that will result in intentional murder. Today we come together to say we will no longer stand for this. Our country was never meant to legalize war tactics against our own citizens. If we want to end the practice of no-knock raids, we must insist that our state removes the ability of no-knock raids to be issued in the state of Georgia. If we want to end the practice of officers violently breaking into a home and destroying life and property, we must insist that our state removes legal immunity to those who perform no-knock raids. If we want to prevent citizens from unknowingly drawing a gun against a law enforcement officer, we must end no-knock raids. If we want to save more innocent lives, we must end no-knock raids. Contact your state house rep, your state senator, your elected sheriff, your elected judges. Tell them that you will no longer stand for no-knock raids. Tell them if they want your vote on November 6th, they must also fight against no-knock raids. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam, and that is so important. We, the people, have the power to change this. Our sheriffs are elected, our judges are elected, our district attorneys are elected. This is a message that we can communicate at the ballot box. Next, we have the family attorney for the Hooks family. Mitchell Shook is here to give us an outline of what is currently known about the night of September 24th, on which David Hooks tragically lost his life. We are still asking for further investigation, but Mr. Shook will be able to share with us the progress that has been made so far.
Thanks, Catherine. Folks, on behalf of Teresa, Carla, and Brandon, I want to tell you how thankful they are that you're here today. In their time of tragedy, it is very comforting for the family to know that people like you are willing to come here, stand up for David, and say enough is enough. This family is about to start their journey toward justice. And we want the people responsible for this act to know one thing. This family is not alone in their journey. We will continue to search for the truth by sifting through the lies and deceptions that have come forth so far by the people responsible for this act. But we can use all the help we can get. So if anybody here knows of anything, hears of anything, whatsoever that you remotely think might be relevant to this situation, please contact my office. I'm not hard to find. We would love to have any information we can gather. We now know some things that we can tell you about that we didn't know until late last week. First of all, Task Force Agent Chris Brewer, in getting the warrant, submitted an affidavit to Judge Faith Snell. As part of that affidavit, he indicated that Rodney Garrett turned himself into police. He did that to try to bolster Garrett's credibility with the judge. We now know, based on the Freedom of Information Act request that we have received, that's not true.
Denied.
That is simply not true. Rodney Garrett's mother called the sheriff's department and asked them to come to her home to check on her husband. Once they got to the home, the mother said, "No, I really want you to arrest my son." He knew nothing about being arrested until they took him out of the house. So the affidavit to the magistrate judge saying he turned himself in was not true. We know that our original investigators' determination that at least 16 shots were fired is accurate. The return from the second search warrant issued by the GBI at 1:52 on the morning after David was killed indicates that 17 shell casings were found at the premises, 16 of them inside the home, one on the carport outside the door they knocked down to enter. This is an indication to us that at least one shot was fired prior to them even entering the open door. some more tragic news. We now know, based on the return of that same search warrant, that the shotgun David Hooks supposedly had was not loaded. Was not loaded. So in their original statement, the Sheriff's Department indicating that David Hooks produced this shotgun in an aggressive manner would have to believe that a man who has hunted and fished all his life, was an avid outdoorsman,